Meanwhile, he's been frothing at the mouth for almost a week since he last spoke to us, and now he's here again. Dr. Roger Givolb, CEO of Fair Money, personal finance and credit expert, joins me now. Roger, listen, we're always fascinated to hear what's really making you froth. Let's start. Guarantor loans. This sounds like a really interesting subject. You start talking about that too much and people are going to walk away. There must be something useful or interesting about this.
Well, there is, because amidst all the incredible hype that we have these days about the new world of digital finance, with decentralized finance, crypto finance, embedded finance, and all the rest, where we can all use our smartphones to get a loan in instants, in minutes. It's leaving behind more than 50% of the population, James, who are financially challenged and can't get instant credit over a smartphone. They're being left behind by the technological gold rush. So I've been saying for a very long time that A, these people shouldn't be ignored, and B, the only solution really seems to be guarantor loans, where if you've got some sort of a credit problem, you can get a friend or a relative to guarantee the loan for you. And
but there are sort of community lenders and various other organizations that you can turn to, though, aren't there?
They're very limited. In the United States, I believe the penetration of those organizations is about 46% of the finance market in its different areas. Here, unfortunately, it's only 2% with credit unions and such, despite all the work that Camilla has done in that area, for example. It's not a really big alternative to service the market that's out there, especially now when so many lenders to non-prime, near-prime, subprime people, as they call them, have gone out of business and stopped lending.
And part of the issue here is, in my view, is financial education. And it's understanding when somebody says an APR is this or an interest rate is that, understanding how these charges can go up if you don't meet your responsibilities and how they can escalate. All of those things are really important. And yet a lot of people, as soon as you start talking about it, will get their head, stick it in the sand and ignore.
Well, I think we have a long way to go before financial education, as you say, is where it should be. And I know there are efforts being made. But for the moment, we do have a segment of more than 50% of the British people, something like 46% of the British people cannot find £300 for an unexpected expense like a broken boiler. An even higher number of people don't have any money left over after payday.
And they're not going to have any money left now, as any spare cash is going to be mopped up by whatever's going on. We must move on, but let's talk a little bit about fair lending and the FCA announcing that they've got ways of getting lenders to make loans to financially challenged people more easily. I mean, it's kind of more of the same, isn't it? Which is, it seems to be that those who are most vulnerable seem to be charged the most. And although that is based on risk and return, surely it exacerbates the problem.
Well, absolutely. I mean, as a consumer champion, I've been saying this for decades. It's actually called, there's a name for it, it's actually called the poverty premium, where not only with lending, but with all sorts of products, insurance and all kinds of other things, people who are financially challenged actually end up being charged more sometimes, very often, in fact.
And that seems to be one of the things that arguably the FCA needs to tackle. We're going to see an enormous amount of pressure on this. Meanwhile, you've just written the headline, shameful. So that means that you must be really frothing at the mouth. I mean, look, it could describe any of the things that Putin is up to, any of the things on the front pages, but no, this is presumably about some financial rip-off or other.
It is indeed, James. I mean, the point is here we are. We've just been discussing access to credit for people who have financial problems, blemishes or something more serious. Now, before anybody even needs to borrow money, they get ripped off and they can't even get it back. Basically, the banks made a voluntary pledge to refund 100% of any losses of customers for what's called bank transfer fraud, where somebody calls you up and says, hi, I'm from HMRC or I'm from your bank or whatever. Please transfer your money to this account. Well, in the 2 years, according to Which, the consumer platform, in the 2 years to June of 2020, £854 million was stolen by these crooks in that way. 300,000 people suffered. That's £2,840 each out of our pockets on average. And which reveals that only 42% of that has been refunded by the banks under their voluntary scheme. They've been pressed But politicians and such regulators are so busy with so many other things all over the place that I guess they're not doing anything to really enforce it. And all these people, forget about loans, these people, the money they had in the bank has been stolen, and the banks aren't giving it back as they said they would.
And as you say, it's something which is so important to make sure that if people are hit by fraud, that at least they're covered in some shape or form. We must leave it there. Dr. Roger Guy-Volbe, CEO of Fair Money, personal finance and credit expert. Thank you so much for joining us once again here on Talk Radio. Much appreciated.